I had always called it my second home, though in truth it had never felt like a home at all, just a quiet promise I made to myself. The promise that one day I would stand on something that belonged entirely to me. No shared names on documents. No family favors. No emotional debts disguised as love. Just mine. The property manager walked beside me up the front steps, clipboard tucked under his arm, talking about rental prices and market demand. I nodded politely, but my thoughts were elsewhere, counting the years it had taken to get here. Double shifts. Missed birthdays. Saying no when everyone else said, "You can afford it." I remembered signing the final papers alone in a fluorescent office, smiling so hard my cheeks hurt while something heavy settled in my chest. Pride, maybe. Or loneliness. Probably both. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The door opened with a soft creak. And everything stopped. A pair of tiny sneakers sat neatly by the wall. A backpack decorated with cartoon animals leaned against the shoe rack I had personally installed. There was a faint smell of fried onions and detergent, human, lived-in smells that did not belong in a house that was supposed to be empty. My heart dropped so suddenly I thought I might faint. "Is someone already renting this?" the property manager asked carefully. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Children's laughter floated down the hallway, light and careless. The sound echoed in my chest, waking something old and painful. I took one step forward, then another, my pulse roaring in my ears. That's when my sister appeared. She came out of the kitchen holding a mug like she had always lived there, like the walls recognized her. Her hair was loosely tied, her face relaxed, confident. Behind her, her 3 children peered around the corner, curious eyes wide, as if I were the unexpected visitor. "Oh," she said, smiling. "You're here." The words weren't welcoming. They were amused. My mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the house itself was holding its breath. "What are you doing here?" I finally managed. She shrugged, completely at ease. "Living." The property manager shifted awkwardly beside me. "Ma'am, there must be some misunderstanding." She waved him off without even looking. "Mom and Dad gave me permission." The sentence landed like a blow. Permission. I stared at her, my ears ringing. This house wasn't a gift. It wasn't inherited. It wasn't family property. Every corner of it had been paid for with my exhaustion, my restraint, my silence. "They didn't have the right," I said quietly. My voice surprised me, it didn't shake. She laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Don't be dramatic. You don't even live here." That old familiar ache spread through my chest, the ache of always being the one expected to understand, to step aside, to sacrifice. I looked around the living room at the toys on the floor, the crayon marks beginning to appear on the walls. Proof that once again, my boundaries had been treated like suggestions. Something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about a house. It was about the moment I finally decided whether I would keep disappearing, or stand my ground. My sister's laughter lingered in the air long after it faded from her lips, light and careless, as if she had just told a harmless joke instead of crossed a line she had never had the right to approach. She took a slow sip from her mug, eyes flicking around the living room with satisfaction, like someone admiring a prize already claimed. "You're always like this," she said, shaking her head. "So serious. So tense. You should relax." Relax. The word scraped against every nerve in my body. I looked at the walls, my walls, now dotted with taped-up drawings and thumbtacks. The couch I had chosen carefully now sagged under the weight of her family. None of it was ruined yet, but all of it was claimed, occupied, rewritten without my consent. "I didn't agree to this," I said again, slower this time, as if clarity might finally land if I spoke carefully enough. She rolled her eyes. "You don't have to agree. Mom and Dad already did." There it was. The familiar shield she had carried her whole life, our parents' silent approval, their constant excuses. The same parents who had taught me to be independent but punished me for succeeding without them. The same ones who praised my responsibility while using it against me. The property manager stepped closer, his voice cautious but firm. "Ma'am, unless your name is on the deed, you don't have legal standing to occupy." My sister laughed, cutting him off. "Oh please. This is family business." Family business. The phrase that had swallowed so many of my objections over the years. The phrase that told me my discomfort was less important than everyone else's convenience. I felt something tightening in my chest, not panic, but awareness. A slow, steady realization that this wasn't confusion. This was entitlement. "When were you planning to tell me?" I asked. She tilted her head. "We thought it'd be easier if you found out later." "You always overreact." Overreact. I remembered lending money that was never returned. Babysitting so she could breathe. Canceling plans because someone else needed me more. I remembered the quiet praise I received for being understanding, while she received loud support for being overwhelmed. "I worked for this house," I said. "Every hour. Every payment." She scoffed. "And? I have 3 kids. What was I supposed to do, let them suffer?" The children had gone quiet now, sensing the tension. One of them clutched a toy car, eyes darting between us. Guilt tried to rise in me, sharp and familiar, but I pushed it down. This wasn't their fault, but it wasn't my responsibility either. "You moved in without asking," I said. "You didn't even tell me." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Because you would have said no." And there it was. The truth, unmasked and unapologetic. She straightened, confidence returning to her posture. "Look, you don't even need the money right now. You're always fine. You always land on your feet." I realized then how invisible my struggles had been. How my silence had been mistaken for ease. How my strength had become an excuse for others to take from me without shame. "If you don't like it," she said lightly, turning back toward the kitchen, "call the police." She said it like a joke. Like a challenge she was certain I'd never accept. But something inside me had already changed. For the first time, I wasn't weighing their comfort against my pain. I was choosing myself, and she didn't see it coming. The words "call the police" hung in the air like a dare she was sure I'd never accept. My sister turned her back to me, already dismissing the moment, already certain she had won. She reached for the kettle, humming softly, as if this were just another ordinary day in a house she believed would always belong to her by default. For a heartbeat, the old version of me stirred, the one trained to back down, to swallow discomfort for the sake of peace. The one who feared being labeled cruel, heartless, selfish. I felt that familiar tug, the guilt that had ruled my choices for years, tightening around my chest. Then I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking. The realization startled me more than her laughter ever could. I wasn't angry in the way I used to be, loud and burning. This was something different. Cold. Clear. A quiet certainty that this moment was a line, and once crossed, there would be no going back. "I will," I said. My voice was calm. Almost gentle. She laughed again at first, a short, dismissive sound. "You're joking." I shook my head. The property manager inhaled sharply. "Ma'am, if you'd like, I can step outside." "Yes," I said. "Please." I walked out onto the front porch, the winter air biting against my skin, grounding me. The house loomed behind me, still beautiful, still mine. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I had never imagined using against my own family. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't dramatize. I simply told the truth. Ownership. Unauthorized occupancy. Children present. Inside, through the glass, I saw her confidence crack. At first, she paced, phone pressed to her ear, whispering urgently. Then her shoulders stiffened, her movements sharper. I could almost hear the words spilling out, "She wouldn't do this. She's bluffing." She always backs down. Except this time, I didn't. When the call ended, I stayed where I was, breathing slowly. The house felt different now, like it had shifted allegiance. For the first time, it wasn't echoing with the expectations of others. It was standing with me. She burst out onto the porch a few minutes later, her face pale, eyes wide. "Are you serious?" she hissed. "What is wrong with you?" I met her gaze steadily. "What's wrong is that you moved into my home without my consent." Her phone rang again. She answered it frantically. "Mom? Dad? She's actually doing it." I felt something heavy loosen inside my chest. For once, my parents' voices didn't reach me first. They didn't interrupt. They didn't override my decision. Authority did. When the officers arrived, everything became procedural. Names. Documents. Deeds. The truth didn't need defending, it stood on its own. My sister's words tangled over themselves as she tried to explain, to minimize, to redirect blame. Then she looked at me, not angry now, but scared. "Please," she said quietly, when no one else was listening. "Think of the kids." I did think of them. I thought of the example I was setting. Of boundaries. Of accountability. Of the cost of teaching them that taking what isn't yours has no consequences. "They'll be okay," I said softly. "But this isn't their home." Her eyes filled with tears, not the kind that come from remorse, but from losing control. And in that moment, I understood something powerful. Calling the police wasn't an act of cruelty. It was the first act of self-respect I had ever truly claimed. The house emptied slowly, piece by piece, as if reluctant to let go of the chaos that had been forced into it. Boxes scraped against the floor. Toys were stuffed hastily into bags. The children were quiet now, confusion clouding their faces as they were ushered out the door. I stayed in the background, not watching out of cruelty, but out of necessity. I had learned that some moments were too important to dilute with guilt. There was no shouting. No dramatic scene. Just the calm finality of consequences. My sister avoided my eyes at first. When she finally looked at me, her expression had changed completely, no arrogance, no laughter. Just disbelief. As if she couldn't understand how the sister she had always overpowered had suddenly become immovable. "This didn't have to go this far," she muttered. I didn't respond. Because it had already gone far the moment she decided my silence meant consent. When the door finally closed behind them, the house fell into a deep, ringing quiet. The kind of quiet that feels heavy at first, then slowly turns peaceful. I stood in the living room, surrounded by empty space, my breath echoing softly off the walls. I expected to feel triumphant. I didn't. What I felt was relief. My phone buzzed almost immediately. My parents. I let it ring. Then again. I turned the screen face down. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to explain myself. I didn't rehearse my reasons or prepare defenses. I didn't seek permission to be right. I understood something now that years of trying to be the good daughter had never taught me. People who benefit from your boundaries being weak will always call you cruel when you finally enforce them. I walked through the house slowly, room by room. Straightening what had been disturbed. Opening windows. Letting light pour in. The house felt different now, not empty, but restored. Like it had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. That night, I sent one message to my parents. I didn't do this to hurt anyone. I did it to protect what is mine. I won't discuss this further. I blocked the replies before they came. The revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't humiliating. It didn't require revenge fantasies or public shame. It was quiet, legal, and irreversible. I rented the house a month later to a young couple who treated it with care. I reinvested the income. I planned my future without factoring in emergencies that weren't mine to solve. But the real change wasn't financial. It was internal. I stopped apologizing for having limits. I stopped confusing love with self-erasure. I stopped shrinking so others could feel bigger. My sister never asked for forgiveness. My parents never admitted fault. And somehow, that no longer mattered. Because sweet revenge isn't about watching others suffer. It's about watching yourself finally stand tall. Unmoved, unashamed, and no longer available for betrayal.